Ariana finally faces the full horror of the trapped souls and the house's hunger, and the first shocking escape attempt begins. The tension peaks, the house's hunger is revealed, and the first attempt to escape the basement begins. The house hungry. The air in the basement was thick with fear, suffocating. Every step I took toward Evan felt heavier, as though the shadows themselves were weighing me down. The trapped figures pressed closer, their hollow eyes following my every move. Their whispers became a chant, echoing through the concrete walls. She chooses, she chooses, she chooses. Elora's red shoes clicked softly on the floor above me. Each tap a heartbeat I could feel in my chest. You shouldn't have come down here, she said, voice calm, melodic, terrifying. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The first attempt. Evan's restraints finally gave way, and he collapsed beside me. His breaths were ragged. His hands shook. We need to get out, now, he whispered. I nodded, trying to steady my own fear. We crept toward the far corner, where an old service hatch led to a crawl space. It wasn't much, but it was the only way that didn't take us past the center of the basement, the center where Elora and the trapped souls gathered. As we reached it, a low growl vibrated through the floorboards. Something large stirred in the darkness beyond the shadows, something that had waited decades for a taste of fear. The whispers became frantic. She's coming, don't go, don't go. I froze. Evan grabbed my arm. We don't have a choice, he said. I pushed open the small hatch. The crawl space. The crawl space was tight, suffocating, lined with damp wood and dust. I had to crawl on my stomach, lantern held high, breathing shallow to keep the panic at bay. Evan followed close behind, silent except for the occasional groan of strained joints. Behind us, the basement seemed alive. The shadows shifted. The walls creaked and flexed as if the house itself was moving. A whisper rose, louder this time. You can't leave, she won't let you. I shivered. My hand slipped on the wooden boards. Then a sudden rush of air from behind. Elora. Her red shoes had entered the basement. Her hum filled the corners of the space, vibrating through the boards. I warned you, she whispered, voice echoing. No one ever leaves. The trapped souls strike. As we crawled, the trapped figures lunged. Not fully corporeal, more like living shadows, but the impact was real. Cold, sharp, almost burning through the skin as they passed through our limbs. Evan screamed, and I grabbed his arm, dragging him forward. They want you, one of the voices said. They hunger, they hunger. The growl intensified. The shadows pressed in closer. The basement was no longer just a room. It was a living entity, feeding on every heartbeat, every ounce of fear, every trembling breath. I could feel the house bending around us, narrowing the crawl space, forcing us forward toward the unknown exit, or trap. The first escape attempt fails. We reached the end of the crawl space. A faint light glimmered at the far edge, a small vent leading to the yard. Freedom, maybe. I pushed against it. It was stuck. Heavy. Rusted. Evan joined me. Together we pushed. Go. I yelled. We strained. The light flickered, shadows moving faster now, pressing against the boards, the walls, even the floor. A hand, cold, skeletal, impossibly thin, shot from the shadows, gripping my ankle. I screamed. Evan tried to pull me free, but another hand latched onto him. Above us, the soft click of heels. Elora's whisper. You cannot leave, not yet. The vent wouldn't budge. The shadows surrounded us. The whispers became screams. The growl became a roar. And then, the trapped figures began to convulse, their forms stretching, twisting, merging with the shadows. I realized with horror, they were no longer human. They were extensions of the house itself. And now they wanted us. The terror deepens. I pressed my back against the cold wall, trying to breathe. Evan's hands were clutching mine. His eyes wide with terror. Elora stepped closer, looming over the shadows, her red shoes tapping softly, deliberately. You opened the trapdoor, she whispered. You saw them. You can't unsee. The house remembers. And now. The air thickened. The shadows surged forward. It will decide, she said. The growls, the whispers, the darkness, they coalesced into a single, living thing. It lunged. And the crawlspace collapsed around us. Ariana and Evan confront the house's hunger directly, the trapped souls, the first real confrontation with the house's hunger, the trapped souls, and Elora's terrifying power. Facing the hunger. The crawlspace shook violently beneath us. Dust rained down in choking clouds. Shadows surged like liquid, pressing in on every side. I could barely breathe. My lungs burned. My throat felt raw. And yet, despite every instinct screaming to run, I forced my eyes open. Evan was beside me, pale, trembling, but alive. We have to fight, he gasped. I shook my head. Fight what? The house. The shadows? Her. Evan swallowed hard. All of it. The shadows strike. The shadows had become tangible, coiling tendrils of darkness. They lashed at us, cold and heavy, wrapping around our legs, our arms, our torsos. Every movement felt like moving through tar. Every breath was an effort. The growls rose in volume, low, guttural, inhuman. The house itself seemed to pulse with hunger. And then Elora stepped closer. Her red shoes tapped deliberately, softly, on the floorboards above us. But each tap made the shadows surge faster, stronger. You opened what you shouldn't, she whispered. You saw what is hidden. Now it feeds. Her hand brushed against the wall, and the shadows froze for just a moment. I realized then that she controlled them. The first real attack. Evan and I struggled to rise. I grabbed a broken metal pipe from the corner of the crawl space. Evan found a heavy piece of wood. We had no plan. No strategy. Only desperation. The shadows lunged first. Tendrils struck like whips. I swung the pipe blindly. One tendril hit, wrapped around my arm, it burned, cold as ice. I yelped and swung harder, striking it again. Evan swung the wood, and one shadow dissolved into a cloud of smoke, leaving a faint, human-shaped outline screaming before vanishing. I realized with horror. The shadows were once human. The 8 figures from below, the trapped souls, they had become the house's extensions. And they were hunting us. Elora's power. Elora descended the stairs slowly, step by step, her eyes fixed on me. You cannot defeat them, she said softly. The house is older than your life, older than this town. It remembers everything, and it consumes everything. Fear, hope, life, it feeds. A shadow lunged at me. I barely dodged. It struck the wall, leaving a dent where my head would have been. You must, Elora whispered, almost kindly. Give yourself willingly, or it will take more than your life. Her words made me freeze. The shadows surged. Tendrils wrapped around Evan, lifting him off the floor. I swung the pipe, desperate, trying to free him. Evan's eyes met mine. He nodded. Go. Get out of here if you can. But the crawl space was closing in. The vent at the end had jammed during the collapse. There was no escape. The house hungry. I slammed the pipe against a shadow wrapping around my leg. It dissolved into smoke, hissing. The other tendrils recoiled for just a moment. The house growled, a low, resonating vibration that shook the floorboards and rattled my teeth. I realized something horrifying. The house reacted to fear. It wasn't just Elora or the shadows. The entire structure, walls, ceilings, floorboards, was alive. It fed on our terror, our panic, our hopelessness. And the more we struggled, the stronger it became. A desperate decision. Evan was struggling, caught in the coils of a shadow. I had one choice. One desperate move. I kicked a pile of debris toward the vent, creating a temporary distraction. The shadows hissed and recoiled slightly. I grabbed Evan, yanking him toward the opening. Tendrils whipped around us. My heart slammed in my chest. Elora's voice whispered from above. No one ever leaves, not fully. I didn't answer. I pushed Evan into the crawlspace vent first. Then I followed, twisting and wriggling with all my strength. The shadows struck at my back, but I forced myself forward. Finally, I burst through the vent into the snow-covered yard. The cold night air hit my lungs like fire. I coughed, gasping for breath. Evan collapsed beside me, shivering, but alive. And behind us. The basement window glowed faintly. A silhouette appeared. Elora's red shoes tapped slowly against the floorboards. She raised one hand, almost delicately, and whispered. You ran, this time. But it always remembers. Ariana and Evan regroup, try to understand the house's rules, and plan their next move, while the true origin of the house and Elora's power is revealed, regrouping, uncovering the house's rules, and the first revelations of Elora's true power. Rules of the house. Snowflakes swirled around us as we lay on the icy ground, gasping for breath. The night air was sharp, burning our lungs, yet it felt like the only thing keeping us alive. Evan shivered beside me. His hands were frozen, yet his eyes were wide with determination. We can't stay here, he said, voice trembling. She'll wait for us. The house, it won't stop. I nodded, still catching my own breath. We need to understand it. The house. Her. The trapped souls. Evan hesitated, then reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out an old, folded piece of paper, yellowed, water-stained, fragile. I found this years ago, he said. Before I tried to leave. It's rules. Notes about the house, written by someone who survived a few hours longer than the others. I took the paper carefully, unfolding it. The house's rules. The handwriting was shaky, almost childlike, but desperate. 1. Never open what is sealed. 2. Do not answer voices from the walls. 3. Do not look directly at her red shoes. 4. Do not show fear. 5. The house feeds on your panic and despair. 6. Every step you take inside it is remembered. 7. You can delay it, but you cannot escape it entirely. I read the last line twice, letting it sink in. The house can wait. It can be patient. It can be clever. But it always chooses. And those it chooses, it will never release fully. Evan looked at me grimly. We've broken almost all of them. I shivered. Then why are we alive? He shook his head. Luck? Maybe. Or maybe it wants something more, from us. Elora's true power. I looked back at the house. The basement window glowed faintly in the dark. Elora's silhouette was visible, poised like a statue. She's not just the warden, I whispered. She's tied to it. To the house itself. Evan nodded. Exactly. Whatever she became after the collapse, it merged with the house. She controls the shadows. She controls the trapped souls. She is the house's voice, its hands, its eyes. I shivered. So if we confront her, we're really confronting the house itself. Evan exhaled slowly. Yeah, and we have to be smarter this time. No mistakes. No fear. Every wrong step, it's watching, remembering. I swallowed hard. But, how do we fight something like that? He looked at me with a grim, hard edge. We don't. Not yet. We survive. We wait. We learn. And then, we choose the right moment. The decision. We sat on the snow, huddled together, trying to form a plan. The house wasn't just alive. It was sentient. It was patient. And it fed on fear. Every moment we panicked, every scream we cried, every wrong move, we strengthened it. And yet, it had weaknesses. Evan traced the old notes with his finger. Rule 4. Don't show fear. That's the key. If we can move without fear, maybe we can distract it long enough to, maybe escape a little longer. I nodded, shivering, but determined. And the trapped souls? Evan, those people. Can we save them? He hesitated. I don't know. Some may never be human again. Some may be too far gone. But if we learn the rules, maybe we can weaken her influence enough to reach them. The wind howled around the house, like it knew we were plotting. Elora's red shoes appeared briefly at the basement window, tapping lightly. A reminder. A threat. A warning. I see you plotting, her voice whispered through the snow, carried on the wind. The house knows everything. Evan and I looked at each other, shivering. Our hands were frozen. Our lungs burned. But we were alive. And for now, that was enough. The plan for survival. Step 1. Avoid the basement entirely unless necessary. Step 2. Observe the house carefully, its patterns, its weaknesses. Step 3. Avoid showing fear, any panic strengthens it. Step 4. Gather information about the trapped souls, their positions, their weaknesses. Step 5. Prepare for confrontation, but only on our terms. The snowstorm intensified. The house loomed behind us like a predator waiting patiently. And I knew, no matter how careful we were, Elora and the house were already planning their next move. Ariana and Evan began exploring the house cautiously, encountering new horrors, and learning more about the trapped soul's true nature. Ariana and Evan cautiously re-enter the house, encountering new horrors and learning the first true secrets of the trapped souls. Echoes of the trapped. The house loomed silently in the moonlight, snow crunching under our boots. Every window seemed like a pair of eyes watching us, judging our next move. Evan tightened his coat and whispered, "We have to go back in. There's no other way to learn what the house wants, and where the others are." I nodded, though my heart pounded like a drum. This time, we moved with care. Slow. Quiet. Deliberate. No panicked steps. No raised voices. Even in the silence, the house seemed alive. Shadows twisted behind windows, behind curtains, bending as if they could reach for us at any moment. The front door. We approached the front door. It had been closed, locked, yet it now hung slightly ajar, inviting. Or tempting. Evan placed his hand over mine. Remember, no fear. We control our fear, or it controls us. I nodded, taking a deep breath. The cold night air filled my lungs and steadied my shaking hands. We stepped inside. The interior was different from the basement. The hallway was quiet, almost normal, yet the air was heavy, thick, like it carried centuries of sorrow and rage. I noticed faint scratches on the walls, almost like claw marks. And then, a whisper. Back again. I froze. Evan whispered, "Don't respond." The voice faded. The house seemed to exhale, a subtle vibration under our feet. The living shadows. We moved carefully through the main floor, lantern held high. Then we saw them, faint shapes in the corners of the rooms. Not solid. Not fully human. Not fully shadow. Figures crouched, watching, waiting. Eyes hollow. Mouths moving, whispering things we couldn't understand. I realized they were the trapped souls. Evan's voice trembled. They're here, watching us. I swallowed hard. Do they want us? Or, help? Before Evan could answer, one of the figures stepped forward. Not a shadow. Not fully visible. But enough, its hand stretched toward us. Help, please. The voice was faint, weak, human. Evan nodded, whispering, "See? Some of them are still aware." The trap of memory. We followed the faint whispers, careful not to step too loudly. Then we entered a small study room, dust floating in the lantern light. On the walls, faded photographs of the house decades ago. Families. Workers. Notes scribbled in margins. And there, etched into the floorboards, was a symbol identical to the one we had seen in the basement. "They're marking it," I whispered. "The trapped souls, or her." Suddenly, the shadows twisted violently. One figure spoke in a chorus of voices, all overlapping. "You cannot save them, you cannot save yourselves." I felt cold terror, but I forced myself to focus. Evan whispered, "They're showing us something. The house can use memories, shapes, faces, to confuse, to trap. Don't let it." The first true clue. We continued through the house, moving slowly, following faint whispers that sometimes sounded like the trapped souls, sometimes like Elora. In the attic, we discovered a journal, old, leather-bound, brittle. The first page read, "The house remembers. It feeds on fear. It merges with those it traps. Some remain human, some become shadows. Only the warden can control them. Beware the red shoes." I looked at Evan. "This confirms everything. The house doesn't just trap, it transforms." He nodded grimly. "And the warden. Elora, she can bend them to her will. But if we learn the rules, maybe we can find a way to free some of them." The lantern flickered. Shadows on the walls writhed. A whisper floated through the attic. "You shouldn't be here." I swallowed hard, gripping Evan's arm. "We're not leaving," I whispered. "Not yet." And somewhere in the house, the trapped souls shifted, watching, waiting. The game had only begun. Ariana and Evan encounter the first truly hostile shadow figure, and the house begins to show that it actively hunts those who defy its rules. The house escalates its attack, a hostile shadow figure strikes, and the true danger of defying the house's rules becomes deadly. Hunted in the dark. The attic air was thick, heavy with dust and tension. The lantern's weak glow barely illuminated the walls. Every corner seemed to shift, every shadow twisting unnaturally. Evan whispered, "We need to move, slowly. Every step counts. Don't panic. Don't show fear." I nodded, gripping the lantern as though it could protect us. And then it moved. The first hostile shadow. From the corner of the room, a dark shape surged forward, a shadow, but unlike the others we had glimpsed. This one had form, strength, intent. It lunged at Evan first. Its limbs stretched unnaturally, striking like whips. He screamed, stumbling backward. I swung the lantern toward it, trying to make it recoil. The shadow hissed, a sound like nails on metal, and shifted, almost avoiding the light entirely. It wasn't human anymore. Not even a trapped soul. It was the house's first real enforcer. Evan scrambled to his feet, holding a heavy metal rod. "We have to fight it," he shouted. I nodded, trying to steady my own fear. The attack intensifies. The shadow lunged again. I swung the lantern as hard as I could, the metal pole connecting with it, and it hissed, shrill, unnatural, almost in pain. But the thing reformed instantly, flowing back into darkness. It struck me, cold as ice, and I went down hard. My lantern skittered across the floor. The shadow hissed, moving toward Evan, but I grabbed the lantern and slammed it into the creature. Light flared, and for a brief moment, it shrieked and dissolved into smoke, leaving behind only a faint, human-shaped outline screaming silently before vanishing completely. Evan gasped, "It's not gone. It'll come back." I nodded grimly. "And it will be stronger next time." The rules in action. I remembered the old notes Evan had found. The rules of the house. Don't show fear, don't answer voices from the walls, avoid the red shoes. I forced myself to breathe, slow and steady. I clenched my jaw, holding the lantern high. The shadows in the corners twitched, but I didn't flinch. Evan mirrored me, holding the rod steady. Slowly, cautiously, we moved toward the staircase that led to the main floor. The whispering walls. The walls around us began to hum softly, a chorus of voices overlapping. "You cannot escape," You cannot leave, she watches. I forced myself not to panic. Every heartbeat, every shiver of fear, would strengthen the house. Evan whispered, "It's testing us, trying to make us afraid." I nodded. Then we don't give it what it wants. We kept moving, shadows following, stretching, bending, but we didn't scream, we didn't flinch. The red shoes. At the top of the staircase, I froze. There she was. Elora. Her red shoes gleamed in the dim light, tapping softly on the floorboards. "You're still here," she said, voice smooth, deliberate. "You shouldn't be." I forced my breathing steady. "We're leaving," I said, trying to sound calm, confident. Her eyes glinted. "No one leaves. Not fully. Not alive. Not untouched." I realized something chilling. She didn't need to move toward us. The house would do the work for her. And then the staircase groaned. Shadows began spilling from the walls, flowing toward us. Survival instinct. Evan grabbed my hand. "Run," he whispered. We bolted down the staircase, the shadows in pursuit, stretching their limbs impossibly long. The house seemed to warp around us, bending hallways, shifting ceilings. A door slammed behind us, cutting off one of the shadows. Another appeared at the top of the stairs, reaching down like black smoke. "Fear," 1,000 voices hissed. "We feed on it." I swallowed hard, forcing my chest to remain steady. We reached the main hallway. The front door loomed ahead, slightly ajar. "Freedom or a trap?" Evan whispered, "One step at a time. Don't look back." I nodded, forcing my legs to move faster than I thought they could. The shadows surged. The growls rose. The house pulsed, alive, hungry, intelligent. And Elora's red shoes tapped once more from above, a slow, deliberate warning. This isn't over. Ariana and Evan begin to uncover the origin of the house and Elora's transformation, and they attempt a plan to weaken her influence over the shadows, the origin of the house, Elora's transformation, and Ariana and Evan's first plan to weaken her control over the shadows. The house's origin. We stumbled into the snow-drenched yard, hearts hammering, lungs burning. The house loomed behind us like a sleeping predator, windows glowing faintly. Evan wiped snow from his face and said, "We survived the first real attack, but we can't keep running blindly. We need to know what we're dealing with." I nodded, shivering. "We need the truth. About the house, about her, about everyone trapped inside." Evan hesitated, then reached into his coat again. From a hidden pocket, he pulled a thin, crumpled booklet, older than anything I had seen so far. "This belonged to someone who lived here, decades ago," he said. "Before Elora. Before the house became what it is now." I took it carefully. The pages were yellowed, brittle, and covered in jagged handwriting, hurried and desperate. The original inhabitant. The first entry told the story of a family who had built the house centuries ago. "We thought it was just a home, but it remembers. Every anger, every sorrow. The wood itself absorbs it. The walls, they speak. And it watches. It waits. Those who live here, or visit, are never free." The writer warned of a warden, someone bound to the house, chosen by it to control the shadows. The pages were more urgent as they continued. The warden is not always human. She becomes part of the house. Feeds on the trapped. Controls the shadows. Protects the house. There is no escape, only delay. I shivered. So Elora, she isn't just trapped. She's the house. Evan nodded grimly. The warden merges with it. Becomes it. Controls the shadows, the trapped souls. The red shoes, her power, her connection, all of it. The first clue to weakness. The booklet ended with a single note in shaky handwriting. The house feeds on fear. If you can face it without fear, if you can show it strength, clarity, and purpose, you can weaken the warden's control. But it's temporary, fleeting, enough to save some of the trapped, perhaps. Enough to survive longer. I looked at Evan. That's our chance. That's how we fight her. He nodded. We need a plan. We need to lure the shadows away, keep our fear in check, and target her connection to the house. The plan takes shape. Step by step, we laid it out. 1. Avoid direct confrontation with Elora unless necessary. 2. Use light and movement to distract the shadows and slow them down. 3. Focus on our fear, control it, suppress it, Project Calm. 4. Seek the trapped souls we can reach, use them as allies if possible. 5. Find the warden's anchor point, whatever keeps her merged with the house, and target it. I swallowed hard. It's dangerous. But it's the only way to survive, and maybe save others. Evan placed a hand on my shoulder. We've already survived the worst. Now it's about being smarter, stronger, and faster. The warning in the snow. As we moved toward the edge of the property to plan our next entry, we saw it, footprints in the snow. Red. Small. Distinct. Her shoes. Elora had been watching us. Waiting. A whisper floated on the wind. You can't hide. I know your fear, and soon, you will belong. I shivered but kept my voice steady. We're not afraid. Not now. Not ever. We know your rules. And we're going to use them against you. Evan nodded. Time to turn the house's hunger into our advantage. The snowstorm whipped around us, but for the first time, I felt a glimmer of purpose. We weren't running blindly anymore. We had a plan. We had knowledge. And for now, that was our weapon against the warden and the house that never forgot. Ariana and Evan re-enter the house armed with knowledge, face their first strategic confrontation with the shadows, and attempt to weaken Elora's control. Strategic return. The night was colder than before, biting at our skin, making every step toward the house feel heavier. Evan adjusted the strap of his backpack, where we had packed our improvised weapons, lanterns, metal rods, and the fragile booklet of rules. We know the house now, he said quietly. We know how it feeds. We can use that. I nodded, gripping the lantern tightly. We have to stay calm. No fear. No panic. And we moved together. The house loomed ahead, windows like dark, unblinking eyes. The faint glow of the basement window reminded me that Elora was always watching, always waiting. The entry. The front door creaked as we pushed it open. Inside, the hallway was deceptively normal. Dust motes floated in the lantern light, shadows stretching along the walls. We moved slowly, deliberately, counting each step, listening. A soft whisper floated from the corner. Back again. I froze, remembering the rules. I didn't answer. I didn't flinch. Evan whispered, "It's testing us. Keep moving." The first stretch of hallway was clear. The walls seemed to breathe faintly, shadows twitching in anticipation. Confronting the shadows. We reached the study room first, the room where the trapped souls had tried to reach us before. Shadows coiled in the corners, waiting. They sensed our fear, searching for weakness. I remembered the booklet, Project Calm, Project Purpose. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, lantern high. Evan mirrored me, rod in hand. The shadows lunged, fast, precise. We didn't scream. We didn't flinch. We moved as one. Lantern swings and rods connected with the shadows, dispersing them temporarily. Their forms hissed, coiling into smoke, only to reform seconds later, but weaker, slower, reacting to our controlled movements rather than feeding off our fear. Evan whispered, "It's working." The fear, it's not feeding them this time. Locating the warden's anchor. We moved toward the basement door, careful, methodical. I noticed symbols on the floorboards, similar to the one in the basement. They pulsed faintly, glowing with a dark energy. Evan pointed. These are likely her anchor points. Each symbol strengthens her control over the shadows and trapped souls. We need to disrupt them. I nodded. We do it carefully. one at a time. We started with the closest symbol, tracing the edges with the lantern. Shadows recoiled when we approached. I used a piece of broken wood to scratch over the symbol, disrupting its form. A low, guttural growl echoed from the corners of the house. Shadows hissed and twisted violently, but we stood firm. Evan whispered, "It's reacting, but we can keep it under control if we don't panic." Elora watches. We paused at the top of the basement stairs. The glow from below was brighter now, more intense. Elora's red shoes tapped softly from the basement window. Her voice floated upward, melodic and terrifying. "You think you can weaken me? The house feeds on everything you fear. Every wrong step, every panic. I am stronger than you imagine." I held the lantern higher, heart steady. "We're not afraid." Evan nodded. "We know your rules. And we're using them against you." The shadows in the corners writhed, recoiling slightly. The house pulsed, alive, furious, but our calm and purpose were disrupting its hunger. The first success. We continued to the next symbol on the floor. Carefully, deliberately, we disrupted it. The shadows shrieked, an inhuman, terrifying sound. But our calm held. And then a faint light broke through the darkness of the basement, illuminating one of the trapped souls. Their eyes glimmered, human again, if only slightly. "You can save us," a faint voice whispered. We exchanged a look. A small victory, but a powerful one. For the first time, we realized the house could be weakened. The shadows could be fought. And the trapped souls might be rescued if we were careful, fearless, and smart. Ariana and Evan pushed deeper into the basement, faced the full force of Elora's control, and attempt their first rescue of a trapped soul. Descending into the warden's domain. The basement door loomed before us, dark and foreboding. Its cold metal handle felt heavier than it should, as if the house itself resisted our entry. Evan glanced at me. "Ready?" I took a deep breath, gripping the lantern. "We have to be. This is where the warden's power is strongest. This is where she controls everything." We stepped inside. The air immediately grew thick, almost suffocating. Shadows twisted along the walls, darker than ever, alive with malice. The house reacts. As we descended, the basement seemed to pulse. The shadows in the corners lunged, tendrils snapping at us, but we didn't scream or flinch. Evan whispered, "Focus on purpose. Control your fear." I nodded, forcing my pulse steady. The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly, as if confused by our calm. A faint glow appeared near the far end of the basement, the trapped souls. One of them, a young woman, crouched behind a rusted chair, her eyes wide with terror. "Help me," she whispered. Elora's full power. Elora appeared at the top of the stairs, red shoes tapping softly. Her voice floated down, melodic but terrifying. "You dare enter my domain, you dare challenge me? The house feeds, and I am its voice, its hands, its eyes. You will fail." Shadows surged violently at her command, writhing and coiling, reaching for us with impossible speed. Evan swung his rod, dispersing one tendril. I raised the lantern, scattering another. But the pressure from all sides was immense. The basement seemed alive, bending and warping, trying to crush us. I realized fully then, Elora was not just controlling the shadows, she was the house's will-made flesh. The first rescue attempt. We crept toward the young woman, careful not to panic. I whispered to her, "Follow us. Stay calm. Don't fight the shadows." She nodded, trembling. Evan and I formed a path, using lanterns and rods to push the shadows aside. Each step was deliberate. Each movement calculated. When we reached her, the shadows surged stronger than ever, coiling around her protectively, not to harm her, but to prevent her from leaving. I remembered the notes, "Fear feeds the house. Calmness weakens it." I held the lantern high, projecting every ounce of certainty I could muster. The shadows hissed, shrieking, but recoiled slightly. Evan grabbed her hand, and we pulled her toward the staircase. Elora intervenes. Elora descended slowly, red shoes clicking, her presence overwhelming. "You think you can take one of mine?" she whispered. "They belong to me now. Every soul trapped, every fear consumed, mine." She raised her hands, and the shadows surged violently. Tendrils lashed toward us, striking the floor and walls. Evan pushed forward, pulling the young woman with all his strength. I swung the lantern at the nearest shadow, scattering it momentarily. "You will fail," Elora hissed, voice echoing through the basement. A glimmer of hope. For the first time, I noticed something: the symbols on the floorboards glowed faintly whenever we disrupted them or projected calm. I realized then, Elora's control had anchors. Disrupt the symbols, maintain calm, and the shadows weaken. I motioned to Evan. Together, we pushed the young woman across the basement floor, carefully avoiding the glowing symbols, disrupting them with rods and lanterns. The shadows shrieked, but their movements slowed, their attacks less precise. And then we reached the staircase. The basement door loomed ahead. We pushed it open. Cold night air poured in. Outside, the snow glistened under the moonlight. Freedom, or at least temporary freedom. The young woman gasped, collapsing in the snow, safe for now. Evan and I looked at each other, exhausted but alive. "We did it," he whispered. I nodded, heart still racing. "One soul, maybe more next time. We can do this." Ariana and Evan attempt to rescue more trapped souls, confront Elora directly, and begin discovering the true weakness of the warden and the house. Striking at the warden. The cold night air burned our lungs as we regrouped outside the house. Snow swirled in the moonlight, but we didn't linger. Evan wiped frost from his face. "We've done it once. We can do it again, but this time, we need a plan for the others." I nodded. "We know the rules now. We know how fear feeds the house. And we've seen her weakness, those symbols on the floor. If we disrupt them while keeping calm, we can weaken her." Evan's eyes hardened. "Then we go back in. Tonight, we save as many as we can." Returning to the house. We entered carefully, each step calculated, every breath controlled. The hallway stretched before us like a dark river, shadows writhing along the walls, coiling in corners. "Back again," whispered voices echoed, but we ignored them. Every flicker of fear would strengthen the house. We descended to the basement, lanterns held high, rods ready. The shadows reacted instantly, lashing and writhing, but slower than before. The symbols glowed faintly under the floorboards. I motioned to Evan. "Target them first. Disrupt their power." Disrupting the anchors. We moved methodically. Evan used a rod to scratch over one glowing symbol. It hissed, and a nearby shadow shrieked violently before dissolving temporarily. I repeated the process at another symbol, forcing my fear down, projecting calm, certainty. Slowly, the shadows around us weakened, their tendrils less precise, less aggressive. The trapped souls stirred, recognizing our approach. Their whispers were faint but human. "Thank you, help us." We pushed forward carefully, keeping the shadows at bay with lanterns and rods. Elora confronts us. Suddenly, from the top of the basement stairs, Elora appeared. Her red shoes tapped deliberately, each sound echoing like a heartbeat. "You dare to return," she whispered. "You dare challenge me again?" Shadows surged around her, forming into a wall of black tendrils that blocked our path. Evan whispered, "Focus. Disrupt the symbols. Keep calm. You can do this." I nodded. Slowly, deliberately, we began disrupting more symbols, forcing the shadows to retract slightly. Elora's calm smile flickered. "Impossible," she hissed. The first major rescue. We reached the far corner of the basement, where 3 trapped souls crouched behind broken furniture. "Please," one whispered, eyes wide. "We're so scared." Evan and I moved as one, shielding them with lanterns and rods, disrupting nearby symbols as we advanced. The shadows lashed violently but faltered whenever we projected calm, careful purpose. We guided the three souls toward the staircase. Each step required coordination, focus, and strength. The basement floor creaked and groaned, the walls pulsed, but we held firm. At the staircase, the door loomed like salvation. The trapped souls stumbled upward, gasping as they reached fresh air and moonlight. I followed with Evan, pushing through the remaining shadows. Outside, snow covered the basement entrance, and for a moment, we felt victory. Discovering the warden's weakness. Once outside, catching our breath, I noticed a pattern. Every time we disrupted a symbol, the shadows weakened, and Elora's influence wavered. Her power isn't infinite, I whispered. It's anchored to those symbols. Break enough, and we can weaken her enough to save the rest. Evan's eyes gleamed. Then that's what we do. We keep striking. Calm, steady, no fear. Hit the anchors. Free the trapped souls. And then, maybe we can finally confront her. The wind howled around the house, a low, haunting echo. Elora's red shoes appeared briefly at a window, tapping slowly, deliberately. This isn't over, she whispered. But for the first time, I felt hope. We had a plan. We had knowledge. And we had the strength to fight. The house was hungry, but we had found its weakness. And tonight, the war would begin.